6:30. I would like to welcome everybody to the September 3rd, 2020 meeting of the Finance Committee. The first item would be Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. If we can have a moment of silence for those who have served our country. Thank you. Is there anybody on the phone for public comment? Hearing none, we'll move on to the prior meetings minutes of August 27th. Looking for a motion to accept the minutes.
So moved.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion on the minutes from last meeting? Yes.
Not to belabor this finer point, as any good attorney knows, document control is one of the most challenging issues facing the world. But we had this revision on that last section pertaining to the process for vacancies. And I see on the current minutes, which one did you call for, Jeffrey?
The 27th.
27th. I think I saw a reference in here to revising the previous meeting's minutes. I can't locate it now. But when we get to the minutes that were accompanying this from August 20th, while that paragraph has a strike-through on it, it's still there.
That's because it was part of the record. The strike-through makes it as amended.
Well, not to belabor this, but in my experience, when minutes are amended, they are corrected to reflect the additions or the deletions and then reissued in a final form with or without that addition or deletion. The fact that the language is still clearly visible sort of runs contrary to the reason for deleting the language in the first place. So the record of the meeting, as I see it, is a function of whether or not the committee that's conducting the meeting approves those minutes or not, regardless of how they were drafted or who drafted them. So the intent was to remove that paragraph, but it's still there.
So those are the minutes of the 20th, which we approved amended to strike that paragraph, which in the format she sent it, it has been struck out.
Well,
Even though
to me, the distinction is between the word processing activity called strike-through, which is what we see here, versus the intent of the revision to delete that paragraph.
So, Mr. Collins, is that standard practice on how minutes are amended?
I would want to just confirm the practice of your recording secretary, which I'm not absolutely positive of. I would want to check with the recording secretary, and I would also just want to establish whatever the past practice has been in order to accurately answer your question.
Okay.
So I'm not trying to deflect the answer, it's just I want to do a little research research, just to be absolutely certain.
Okay.
And that's fine, I agree.
I think the spirit and the intent is probably clear enough, but I don't want to suggest what you do with your minutes as far as approval, amendment, revision, deletion, or any other modification.
I thought generally over the years, you make the correction, which changes comments that were in the previous minutes, but you leave the comments in the previous minutes so that people reading it know there was a correction. Otherwise, they don't know what the correction means.
That's my understanding.
But that, I'm not a political lawyer on that whole thing, but.
Well, if that's the case, then, not to belabor this, but then I don't see the benefit of correcting the minutes. If what's being corrected still stands, even though it's noted that it was corrected, anybody 2 years from now looking back at a meeting, minutes, for whatever reason, is going to be misled because there was wording in there that was subsequently amended, either to change it or delete it. And I would think that the town would have the same protocol for minutes of all town meetings, so.
I think that the final minutes will reflect the accurate depiction of whatever occurred. I think, without having that document in front of me, what is probably put into context is what was corrected so that you can see the change and know what it is that you're voting on.
But then it would follow that once you've seen the change and know what you're voting on, that the action required by that vote would occur, and the deletion would occur from the final official version that goes on record. And as we see here, the only, the minutes that I see from the 20th still show that language in there, even though we voted to eliminate it.
Oh, I see what you're saying. You're saying you already voted to eliminate that.
Last week,
Voted
yeah.
to correct it, I thought. but-
Yes.
All right, I didn't know what you were looking at. I'm sorry.
But the version she sent out of the corrected minutes had the section in question struck through. In my interpretation, it's like, we've amended it to remove that, is the way it shows, as far as I'm concerned. So
Yeah.
it's like, it's no longer part of the minutes meetings.
But it's still here in the most recent iteration that we got a copy of today, crossed out. And then there's a notation under it, parentheses, removed by the Finance Committee on August 27th. But my point is, if it was removed, it should not be there anymore at all. And if it weren't that way, I wouldn't have wasted everyone's time amending the minutes.
I'll have a talk with Kathy.
Yeah, whatever, so. Thank you for the indulgence.
About how they're normally processed.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I have one, I believe, change in the minutes, an error in the article.
Okay?
On page 8, the climate change policy statement, it says it's out in draft 3, it says it's Article 16. In draft 3, it's Article 9. And in draft 4, it's Article 16.
Okay?
Because that vote there, climate change on 16, that relates to the paving, and that's why it was confusing. So this is on page 8, climate change policy statement. It should be remove the hold on Article 9 of draft 3, not 16. Now, on draft 4, it is Article 16, but these are referring to draft 3. confusing because of the two drafts had different numbered articles.
Mm-hmm.
Because since the paving vote failed, we had 3-2 no vote. If we call it Article 16 of draft 3, that means the paving passed. So that's why the conflict is there.
Not finding. Very good. So now you're looking at the minutes, shows Article 9, now 16, climate change. Remove the hold 401. Motion made to recommend, I've got a 5-0 vote. That.
What article is that in?
Okay,
Number four.
which draft do you want?
Four.
On 4. On 4,
16.
climate change is Article 16. But on draft 3,
So
It's
what I'm
Article
seeing,
9.
Right.
what I'm seeing in the minutes, all right, under, it says Article 9, climate change policy, which is what it was, it's now 16,
correct.
all right? It was a vote to remove the hold, a 5-0 to recommend Article, I see what you're talking about,
It should be.
got it.
Move the hold instead of Article 16, it should say Article
Article
9.
9, got it. And on the vote to recommend,
Same with that.
is Article 9, got
And then
it.
it doesn't conflict with our vote that we took on draft 3, Article 16, which was paving.
Yep, I understand what you're saying now. So the change you're recommending is that under the portion of the minutes where it says Article 9, now 16, the first motion should read, motion made by Mr. Miller to remove the hold on Article 9, draft 3.
Yes,
And the motion below, motion made by Mr. Richardson to approve and recommend Article 9, draft 3.
correct.
Is what those should be changed to. Got it.
Now I see it. I couldn't find it either, now I see it.
Any other amendments to the minutes?
A spelling error.
Where's that?
That's, I just lost it. It was Evan's name. On page 7, on Article 16. His name is spelled wrong.
I can't quite hear you, darling.
I'm sorry, on page number 7, under Article 16, now 15,
Yeah.
Evan's name was spelled incorrectly. If it matters.
All
It may
right.
matter to him.
All right, so that will reflect the correction of that name.
It says even.
All right, you made the motion, are you okay with the
Amend my
amendment?
motion to, with the corrections discussed.
I'll second it.
Mr. Miller,
Oh,
John, are you okay with the amendment?
Yeah, just in clarity, the issue that I raised in the August 27th minutes that we're about to approve, I think, is correct. So I don't have any changes or edits to that. What remains incorrect, even though we've already approved them last week, are the minutes from the 20th. So, yes.
And we'll take a vote. Mr. McKelvey?
Abstain? Wasn't here.
Yeah.
Yes.
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 All right, thank you. All right. nothing for appointments or hearings. So first of all, is there any communication from the liaison for the Board of Selectmen? Is Mr. Whedon by any chance on the phone? All right, so hearing none. Communication from the school board liaison. Hey there. That's coming up next.
So good evening all.
Good evening.
Hi.
Thank you. First of all, thank you for the invite. I
Can you
apologize.
just introduce yourself?
I'm sorry, I'm Jeff Corbett. I'm the liaison from the school committee. I apologize for not making it last meeting. I had some technical issues with the dial-in, so I came in person to try to make sure we didn't have any issues. I don't know what information you'd like, but I will give you just a quick rundown. We did have a successful closing of the year. Working very closely with the town, of course, and we ended up turning back approximately $560,000 back to the town. Of course, that was driven mostly by salary side expenses we did not have to use because of the COVID mitigations. We're also working very closely with the town to identify COVID type mitigation expenses that we can utilize. The grant that's been provided to the town of Mashpee to assist us with that. We also have our own grant that we were awarded from the Commonwealth that we're also drawing from. And right now, I have a little sheet here. We have approximately $1.1 million in identified expenses that will be covered by those two grants.
How much was that again?
1.1 million. This is all living document stuff here, of course. The majority of it was some salary expenses. We had to hire some extra teachers to support the face-to-face elementary school plan. And there's a lot of electronic, as you can imagine, and technology updates that we had to do, including Chromebooks for the 4th through 6th school age children who don't normally take their Chromebooks home. They just have them in cars, but they're providing Chromebooks to take home now so they can do their hybrid model, so when they're at home for a week. That's really what's going on right now. We do have a financial working group that we utilize, and I've been in front of this board before talking about our 5-year plan. We do have a 5-year plan, and again, it's going to be a much shorter plan this year. We're probably going to do a 1-year plan just to see what new assumptions we have to make over the next budgeting year to try to ensure that we're capturing all the, honestly, the strange non-status quo things that we have to support. I also know that the administration is very actively communicating with the town manager and the director of finance to ensure that there are no surprises on either side of the aisle, to make sure that at the end of the day that we're able to successfully pull off this hybrid and face-to-face model and be able to get these children the best education we possibly can. So it's really weird school year. So that's all I have. Again, I thank you for inviting me, and I'll entertain your questions. I don't know if you want me to come every week or every meeting. I'm welcome to, or upon invite, whatever you like.
You're more than welcome to come whenever you want, have something to share. It will be on the agenda in case there is something.
Okay.
Just like I plan on having the Board of Selectmen liaison on there every week in case there's something he needs to let us know about. I'm sure there will be an opportunity, once we get into the budget process, to have more communication. And we may ask specifically you to attend at a specific time when we want to discuss the school's budget at that point.
Wonderful.
Any questions for Mr. Gorman?
No, you guys got a tough job ahead of you with everything going on, and I'm sure you guys are capable of the task, so we wish you the best of luck, really.
I appreciate that. We're lucky we have an amazing administrative team that is really collaborated, not only together, but they have a very large pool of individuals, not only students and parents and staff and teachers, to get this plan in place, but they continue every day to figure out things. They're finally getting cohorts finalized this week so that they can get that out to the parents. The transportation stuff is falling into place. They're a great group of leaders over there.
question.
Yeah, hi, John Miller. Thank you for coming. Appreciate the insight. The 1.1 million in COVID-related expenses that you've identified, has that been fully consumed by the state and town funding available so far?
It's actually about half and half right now, and not all of it has been 100%. Some of it is in the PO process. With the
Okay.
town. It's around, it looks like it's broken out right now, 383 roughly for the town and 446 for the school. We had to move things around a little bit. We were required to spend our grant, the school grant, by December 31. So some of the extra staff was unable to fall into that grant, so we got to shift some stuff around.
So what is the total grant from the state,
For the school is $510,000.
of which you've used 446?
446,216 that's the estimated amount that we'll take out again.
All right, and from the town's allocation, 383,
383,000.
is the limit of that known, or is that sort of determined on the fly?
I just know that the superintendent and Ms. Thayer work very close hand in hand to ensure that they know well in advance what we need, because we understand that this grant, the town grant, is shared by the whole town. It's not a school grant, so we want to make sure that we're as proactive as possible to provide, hey, we got some things that we think's gonna happen in the next month, this is how much it's gonna
Sure.
cost, what do you think?
To Mike's point, I don't envy the fogginess of the crystal ball that you have to look at, but as the budget process draws closer in the fourth quarter of this year, do you anticipate from your due diligence that the 1.1 million that you've identified for this fiscal year due to COVID is likely to cover the exposure that you might face over the 12-month period?
I think we have some other areas that we can support our finances as we move on through the year, but I would really be remiss to say that we could even, at this point, we haven't even started school yet,
Sure.
to make an understanding of how the plan's gonna change on first contact and how that's gonna affect our finances. So again, all we can do is ensure that we're very open and collaborative with the town and ensure everyone understands what we're saying and try to make really smart, cost-centric decisions about how we're gonna take care of it. At the end of the day, we just wanna get as many kids in the seats as possible and take care of them educationally.
Sure.
And if we have to make decisions that are gonna affect the kids because of money, that'll be decisions made after everyone has made it, put in their 2 cents to keep it, rather than
Well, thank you. Keep up the good work.
Mr. Gorham, Greg McKelvey, how you doing? A couple of quick questions I just have for you. What about equipment as far as HVAC units? Are you upgrading those any to help filtration, any new filtration systems or anything, any improvements going into what you have now at the school, and how does that work into all of this?
So the control of the school's infrastructure itself is controlled by DPW, not the school committee, but I do know that we had a briefing yesterday by the superintendent that Rise Engineering is doing an HVAC consultation for all the schools.
Excellent.
That information is not available yet.
Okay.
So although the information I got from the superintendent this morning is that there's been no signaling of any concern so far. I know they have been going in, DPW's been very diligent with doing some tweaking to the HVAC systems to ensure we have maximum outside air exchange. And, so I don't expect anything's going to change. We get the report from Rise Engineering. I know for sure that we'll get the support from the town and DPW to make the changes necessary.
The other question I have,
If I could.
Sure.
That was a point of discussion with the administration as well as the teachers' union was there, myself and the assistant manager, the DPW director, and it was very collaborative and very productive, and I think all of those issues are going to be addressed.
excellent. My other question is about transportation of buses. How are you setting that up, and is there any extra cost for the busing contracts this time around, or how is that working for you right now?
There is no extra cost for busing. The extra expenses that I can think of, with the exception of, PPE and hand sanitizer, is we do have to have bus monitors on all the buses. And that is actually part of the COVID-19 mitigation expenses we have here.
That's okay.
There's somewhere, yeah.
Are you having, are they having any issues getting those monitors? Do you still need more monitors?
$29,000 for.
129. Okay.
I don't have an update on the bus monitoring hiring. You know, we do occasionally dip into the weeds as a committee with the administration, but that is 100% the superintendent's purview hiring. I do know that she is very collaborative as well with us, and that if there was an issue with hiring those, that is a directive from Desi, we have to have those bus monitors. If those bus monitors are on there, we can't use that bus, and then effective plan is in place. And so I think that'd be very important to talk about. So I have no doubt that she's telling us that is a fact.
Right. Well, I appreciate it. Thank you for everything. I know it's been a tough year. It's a year that keeps on giving, but you guys have done a great job. I loved what you did with the graduation. I got a lot of good comments from parents, and I wish you all the best this year, and we're here to help if we can do anything for you. Thank you.
Yep. If there are no further questions,
Okay, thank you for the advice.
thank you very much, Mr.
Thank you for coming.
Thank you.
Is there somebody on the phone?
Hello?
Hello?
Hello? Are you folks closing out at 7 o'clock? This is just getting ready for Board of Health meeting.
No, this is the Finance Committee meeting, and we're not scheduled to close at 7, no.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Thank you. All right, so that done. Moving on to old business. We do have old business for the first time in I don't know how long. Thanks to my error in procedure, we need to vote on the appointment of a clerk for the Finance Committee. I did not properly bring that to vote last week, so we're looking for nominations for clerk of the Finance Committee.
I nominate Darlene Furbish.
I'll second that nomination.
All right, we have a nomination and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, we'll take a vote. John?
Yes.
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 Abstain.
Yes.
Thank you. Congratulations again, Darlene.
Thank you.
Out of curiosity, Mr. Chairman, I wonder, would something like this not fall under the category of space reserved for topics the chairman did not reasonably anticipate? Last week?
Last week is where I took care of it. Unfortunately, I needed a motion to bring it up, and
Okay.
did not do that. Because it had to be placed onto the agenda in that space, and we did not do that. So that's why it had to be revoted. It had to go on the agenda to begin with. All right. New business. All right, the first item of new business is to finish going through the articles we have in draft 4, which is the one we're currently working on. All right, so the first article we need to take action on is Article 5. This is a new article that was not in draft 3. Right there, all right. So this article is to see if the town will vote to appropriate and transfer the sum of $80 from revenue available for appropriation to pay the previous fiscal year's unpaid bills as follows. Michael Finlayson, $80. Have a motion on this article?
I move we approve Article 5. for
And I'll
inclusion
second
in the
it.
warrant.
Any discussion? I actually do have a question on this. What exactly is this paying for?
This is paying for professional development for a DPW employee. It's just a reimbursement that was an oversight. DPW, by the time it was submitted, we were beyond our deadline. Hence, you have an article for the reimbursement
Okay, thank you very much. It clarifies for me what it's for. That's all I needed.
I believe it was for hoisting. Hoisting training, sir.
Okay. Any other questions? Hearing none, we'll take a vote. Mr. McKelvey?
Yes.
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 Yes?
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you. All right, the next article up for action is Article 6. This is one of the labor contracts, Unit A for the Administrators Union.
Yes, Administrators A, this collective bargaining agreement covers all assistant department heads and support staff. It's a cost of living adjustment of 2, 2, and 2. It also eliminates a step 1, and a new step 8 is created that is 2% higher than the old step 7. For language changes, the reclassification study committee is eliminated. Lunch periods are no longer restricted from 12 to 1, and sick leave can be used in half-hour increments, and sick leave for doctor and dentist appointments are subject to the approval of the town manager, and an opt-out incentive created for medical insurance was generated, and language changes were inserted to reflect changes in the chart. So the grand total for line A is $26,645.
All right, 26,645. Have a motion on this article?
I move we support Article 6.
Second.
Thank you. We've got a motion and a second. Any discussion on this article?
Question. Rodney, when you say 2, 2, and 2, is this a 3-year contract and 2% per year? Is that what you mean?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
It's 2% cost of living adjustments,
Okay.
and that is consistent with other unions.
And if you're able to say for this and other related articles of this nature in here, are the numbers that you're going to give us tonight aligned with what your expectation was prior to entering negotiations?
Absolutely.
Okay. Thank you.
Actually,
Or better?
the grand total between May and October of what is spent is lower than what we were putting aside.
Yeah,
Thank you.
If I'm correct, this money has already been put aside. It's not
Right.
increasing the budget or anything like that. It was already reserved for this purpose.
There was a certain amount of money that we were relying on, but I don't want to mislead you.
Right.
This amount of money is going to come from the free cash, which I'd be more than happy to elaborate on as we go along.
One other question. So the 26,645, is that a 3-year figure then, or is that just for
No, that's for this year.
a 12-month period this year?
But
Okay.
by the same token, the 2, 2, and 2 is 3 years.
All right. So if any of these articles come back to us a year from now, it'll be just to appropriate that year's portion, not the result of a renegotiation?
That is correct. We
Okay.
should not be renegotiating for 3 years.
Got it. Thank you.
Any further discussion? All right, we'll take a vote. John?
Yes.
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 Thank you. Unanimous? All right. Article 7 is Unit B.
This collective bargaining agreement covers all the department heads not employed through a personal service contract or covered by the PAP. These cost of living adjustments are 2, 2, and 2 as well. There are some modifications in some positions that were made consistent with the median on Cape Cod. Advancement in step will occur on the employee's anniversary date, consistent with past practice. There were some compressed steps. What do I mean by that? We did eliminate step 1, and we added a new step 8 at 2% in the 8-step pay schedule. That did occur in a couple positions. A stipend was also agreed to for the conservation agent in performing specific additional responsibilities. The Human Services Coordinator is technically now designated as the Human Services Director. Lunch periods are no longer restricted to 12 noon to 1 p.m. There's a little flexibility there. And sick time and personal time can be used in half-hour increments versus 1-hour increments. And there were some minor language changes inserted to reflect the charter changes that were basically housekeeping items. The grand total is $45,746.
Say that again?
$45,746.
Thank you.
Thank you. Is there a motion for Article 7?
Make a motion to approve Article 7.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion on Article 7?
Yes, question. There's a trend so far with these two articles to add a step 8. Is that happening in most of these instances?
It does if we need to adjust to get to the median. What do I mean by the median? There's 15 towns on Cape Cod, and essentially what we strive to do is to stay in the middle. We're not going to be at the high, but we don't want to be at the low.
Okay.
Putting
So-
at step 8 to get you in that ballpark. That's what it does, right? Yeah.
Yes.
But we probably would not have this year added a step 8, or at least for this 3-year contract, unless there was a real-time potential for someone to achieve that level?
I think it all depends on the circumstances. Specifically, it depends on the terms and conditions that are being negotiated. Under 150E, we negotiate wages and benefits and work conditions. Sometimes we focus on language changes. If and when there are some items that are of interest to the town, then we may negotiate in such a way that the union gives up something and we get something, or vice versa. I think collectively, these were smooth negotiations. I think the town and the unions were respectful to each other's needs and wants, but also were facing a reality check in terms of its limitations. So I guess to answer your question, it's kind of a broad answer in the sense that we focus on the median, but sometimes there are some contributing factors that have to be taken into account.
Understood. Thank you.
Any further discussion on Article 7? And hearing none, we'll call for a vote. Mr. McKelvey?
Yes.
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 Unanimous, thank you. Moving on to Article 8. Which is the Public Works Contract for Unit A.
This collective bargaining agreement covers all custodial and facilities maintenance staff. Cost of living adjustments are the same, 2, 2, and 2. A new step 12 was adopted at 3% higher than step 11 across the board. The stipends were adjusted for the lead custodians, and 16 hours of sick time can now be used for scheduled medical and dental appointments in hourly increments with a 48-hour notice, except in an emergency. And also bereavement leave change was from calendar days to business days. and there were 2 days vacation that could be exchanged for 2 personal days during the fiscal year in hourly increments. What does that mean? They don't have to provide us with as much notice on a personal day as they do a vacation day, and they wanted to be able to exchange an extra vacation day for a personal day. They didn't get any extra time, but in terms of process, there was a change that was approved, and that's language. The grand total is $39,462. Again, $39,462.
Thank you. All right, looking for a motion on Article 8.
Motion?
Second.
Okay, we got a motion to recommend Article 8.
I have a question, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah,
I was curious, what's your definition or difference between a vacation day and a personal day? Just so I know.
Other than the fact that traditionally they're in all contracts, it's one of the same, it's time off. But vacation time historically has been for something that has been a little bit more advanced, it has a little bit more advanced planning. And then personal days are essentially for something that has suddenly come up that's more of an urgent nature, but it doesn't involve sick time.
Okay, and just out of curiosity, do you require pre-planning of vacation time for staff?
There's different notice requirements, to be honest with you, Greg, and it all depends on which unit it is that you're talking about.
Okay.
It ranges anywhere from a 2-week notice to at least like a 3 or 4 day notice. Personal time, depending upon which unit it is, has been used with
Right.
little to no notice.
Right, okay, all right, thank you. Just curious.
Were the other negotiations involved in calendar days versus business days as well, or just this one?
No.
Because it's quite a bit of a difference sometimes.
Yeah, and I think the issue there, and I don't want to talk out of school here, but let me try to explain that. I think what the issue was is we had an individual who lost a relative, but the relative was out of the country, and there wasn't going to be a memorial service until months down the road. And I think the language, as I recall, indicated that they had to use it up a certain amount of days after the death. And we wanted that individual to be able to go out of the country to the funeral of his mother. I think that's what happened.
General question about paid time off, PTO, is can all forms of PTO be banked or accumulated? And is there any limit?
There is a limit on vacation. Are you talking about vacation or personal or both?
Whatever form it takes.
It's all contractual, and it's all per year. The only thing that carries over is sick time. Now, there is sometimes an exception for compensatory time. In lieu of overtime, there are individuals that may accrue comp time. And if in fact there are unique circumstances where the time is accrued at the end of the fiscal year, like mid-June or end of June, might we say you can carry it over to July 1st because it's a busy time of year for us and you couldn't have used it? It's possible, but generally it goes fiscal year July 1st to June 30th, or the anniversary date of the individual.
Wouldn't the latter be more appropriate? The anniversary date rather than the fiscal?
It all depends on the contractual obligation.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Okay. So generally speaking, only sick days can be accumulated, what, indefinitely?
Carried
or-
over. I mean, everything's accumulated, but, I mean, in terms of carrying over from year to year, you don't get 20 vacation days one year and say, well, you know what, I'm not gonna burn any vacation days, so then next year I'm gonna get 20 more, and now you get 40. And then all of a sudden, the next year, you get another 20. It doesn't work that way.
So if for whatever reason you choose not to utilize your vacation time, you forfeit it at
That
the
is
end of the
correct,
year?
but they generally
Okay.
use it.
Because I was just concerned about, there's the potential, for a lot of liability that could be accrued if
The only
people relax
liability-
in doing that, so.
The only liability is the sick time, and we keep a monitor on it, and we prepare for a person that is retiring. The only thing that would get us into trouble, and I don't even want to say this publicly, but if everybody retired at the same time that we're eligible to, then we'd be in trouble.
One question, so they
Thank you.
don't accumulate sick time, do they use it or lose it? But do they get paid for it? In other words, if they didn't use it?
They do on a certain percentage. And right now, it's 1 for 2 in a lot of contracts, but the key is, they're gonna, in not all contracts, but in some, they're going to receive the buyout provided that they have a certain amount of sick days accumulated, which means that they didn't abuse it. And then secondly, they're going to receive it if they have a certain amount of time in service, which I think has been focused on 20 years.
But vacation pay specifically, if they didn't use their
Well,
20 days?
To be frank with you, Pat, in the person's last year of service, let's say the person, and again, I want to be careful because you've got several different bargaining units, and it could be different from one versus the other. But essentially, to answer your question, if the person knew he or she was going to be retiring, in their last year, they could say, you know what, I'm not going to use any vacation time, I'm not going to use any personal time. We would end up paying them for that in their last year. But we would be paying that upon separation anyway.
Who do we have on the phone?
Kathy called in.
Ah. Hello, Kathy.
Hello. I lost you.
All right. All right. Any more discussion on Article 8? Hearing none, we'll take a vote on Article 8. Actually, we haven't had the motion yet, have we?
I don't remember.
No.
Well,
We had a
Yes,
motion
yes, we
already.
did, because we got into the discussion, so we'll have the vote on Article 8. And John, let's start
Yes.
with you.
Yes.
Yes?
yes,
Yes,
Yes.
It's unanimous again, thank you. That brings us to Article 9, Public Works Contract Unit B.
This collective bargaining agreement covers the highway and ground staff. Cost of living adjustments are 2, 2, and 2. Step 1 is eliminated, and new Step 11 is established at a rate of 2% above the old Step 10. A provision has been included that the town mechanic may be called in during weather emergencies instead of shall be called in. Sick leave buyback at the retirement age retirement changes with minimum of 20 years of service and 480 hours, which is what I was just referring to, Pat, resulting in 1 for 2 versus 1 for 3. And also bereavement language changes from within 14 days of death to at the discretion of the town. And employees can exchange up to 2 vacation days to 2 personal days, and minor adjustments were made to longevity pay. 5 years of service and 25 years of service are abolished for future employees. Increases are approved for uniforms and protective gear. And the total cost there is $22,565.
22,565?
22,565.
Thank you.
And if anybody keeping count, I believe your total, based on what I just gave you, what you've already approved, and the article that is pending before you, totals $134,418. And I would point out to the Finance Committee that this resolves all outstanding collective bargaining memorandum of agreements for the next 3 years. And this further focuses on keeping Mashpee employees in the Cape Cod median in terms of wages.
Thank you. All right, so we're looking for a motion on Article 9.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion on Article 9?
Yeah, question. If you can say, Rodney, what triggered the distinction between shall and may regarding emergencies?
We didn't want to call the mechanic in if we didn't have to.
Oh, so in the past,
It said
everyone
shall.
knew that they had to come in an emergency whether they're needed or not?
No, we're talking about just one member. It was the,
What's he talking about?
the may or shall with
The mechanic.
Mechanic. It's just the mechanic.
So my question is, in the past, because it said shall, does that mean that he was called in and compensated even if it wasn't needed, just because it was an emergency?
Yes.
Okay. Makes sense.
Any further discussion? All right, now we'll take a vote on Article 9. Greg?
Yes.
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 Yes?
Yes.
Yes.
All right, 6-0, another unanimous vote. Thank you very much. All right, the next article we need to...
Can I ask just a general question?
Yeah.
If you know, what number of town employees are not covered by a collective bargaining agreement or percentage?
Well, I
roughly?
don't know the percentage. I can certainly get that for you. There are several who have a personal service contract. You're looking at one of them. Obviously, the assistant town manager, the police chief, the fire chief, the police captain, and the deputy fire chief are all personal service contracts. The remainder of the non-union employees would be PAP. That includes the DPW director and her supervisors, and the people in charge of the, the treasurer, the assessor, the folks in accounting, except for the administrative assistant, and the folks in HR are all PAP, and I'm sure I'm missing a couple off the top of my head. And the administrative assistant at the PD is PAP as well. What percentage that is,
Yeah, okay.
off the top of my head, I don't know. I can certainly get it for you.
Yeah, I'd be curious generally, what the head count is for employees, other than the very part-time seasonal ones perhaps, and then what percentage of that is covered by agreements or not, just for future reference.
Okay?
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
All right, so moving on, the next article is Article 10. This is the article for the single-use plastic bottle ban by the town. All right, so we're looking for a motion on this article.
Were we trying to figure out the language in letter C as to whether or not it was confusing?
Yes, you were. What you were looking at was C in that Article 10. And you were looking for clarification on the 7 days. You were concerned about that. The town council has clarified that and has written 7 days after the declaration.
Okay.
So that clarifies what you were looking for.
Is this article very different than what was originally submitted last year?
I'm sorry, I was making a note to myself to make sure I got his info, so I didn't hear the beginning.
The article is a little different than what was presented, only because it had to be in a bylaw format. So that the town council has put it in a format. The intent and the, everything that they had wanted in it is in the article.
Okay, thank you.
All right, so we're still looking for a motion on Article 10.
Yeah, I think this, I'm sure the article is well-intended, but I think this sets us up for somewhere down the road to have a town-wide bottle ban.
So we need to have the article move, a motion and a second before we can actually start
Okay.
discussing.
Okay, sure.
I move we recommend Article 10.
We've got a motion. Do I hear a second?
I'll second it.
All right, we've got a motion and a second on Article 10. Any discussion on Article 10? Kelly?
No, I just think, I know it's what this article's well-intended and all, but I think it sets us up for a bottle ban down the road in the town of Mashpee. And I just don't think, I think consumers can decide what they want, what they don't want. They can be educated by the town, by the DPW and different folks about recycling and all the things that go with that. And I just don't, I, for one, won't be voting for a ban on anything like this. So, thank you.
I have a question. They didn't change the language in this. Did council, they're going to change it further?
It was brought to the petitioner to make sure that it met their intent, and they were happy with it.
You're referring to the 7 days, Pat?
It says 7 days after such declaration.
Oh, yeah.
It really, if they're going after, it should be saying after the emergency is over, not the date, the declaration. The declaration is on the day they made it. Is yours different?
This is what town council.
Okay.
did. 7 days after the such declaration.
7 days after such, that's the same language as before.
This is what they're clarifying, so the town council is clarifying that, so he is going to clarify this
He's-
part of the language.
He's going to clarify it,
Yes.
okay.
So draft 5 will reflect the clarification,
Yes.
in theory.
So if you choose to wait till that
Until we
goes
see
through
draft
from town
5.
council, that's fine.
I'm just wondering, Greg, to your point, and in many ways, I don't disagree with you, but on the one hand, if the selectmen, I think, and the finance committee have recommended that mom and apple pie article about being environmentally sensitive that was recommended by the 350 committee, if we decline taking a stand in favor of this sort of action, isn't that a bit hypocritical?
Well, I'm hoping we can revisit that article later when I make a motion to rescind it and revote it.
That would answer my question.
Yes, it would. Thank you. And I don't agree with the statement here. It says recycling is of little help and does not eliminate or reduce the dependency on plastic. Well, if recycling is of little help, why are we recycling in Mashpee?
I think recycling's been tried all over the world in various places. It helps in some times, and they were doing a wonderful job, and other times it hasn't. But you can't ignore the fact that if you don't get rid of that stuff and get it off the planet, it's gonna destroy life for everybody else. You gotta start someplace.
Plus, I don't have any metrics on this, but I just can't imagine that the town or the schools are a major contributor to plastic bottle litter anywhere, town of Mashpee or beyond. I think it's more likely the average consumer that buys stuff at the convenience store or brings a 12-pack home from the supermarket. In town hall, there's a vending machine, I think, maybe not, that has water in it or plastic bottles. And my guess is that the employees here probably dispose of it properly before they leave the building. They don't leave it in the parking lot. So while I agree with you that the intent is noble, I just don't see that the impact is going to be great versus the impact if they were banned Cape-wide, you know, from any source, whether it's the town or not. So for the purposes of this discussion, I think I'm siding with you on this when it comes to a vote
Well,
here.
it's not a ban, first of all, because it's not eliminating plastic bottles everywhere. It's the beginning of trying to start a process of finding a way to reduce the stuff that's all over the place.
Well, and that's fine, but, you know, but what replaces that? I mean, if someone comes in the building, and unless we have water fountains, or, you know, a lot of places have these newfangled water fountains where you bring your own water bottle, which is great, and you can hook into it, and it pours water into it. Now, that'd be great. We can invest on like 12 of those in these buildings. That'd be great, or more, right? And then maybe I would support this. But until that happens, there's nothing to replace this. So I think it's noble, but I think it also needs some more thought. So.
Does anyone know what neighboring towns have done so far? I know it's been a recurring topic.
It's been a topic, but I don't know.
I'm not sure either.
I think most of the towns on the Cape have something similar going on this year. But I don't know what, you know, how they voted. I think you gotta start someplace. I mean, you see too much of this stuff around. Most of us live in the country, and you see it all over the place. I think you have to start someplace. One can argue that there is no alternative, but, you know, it seems to me when I couldn't get to school going one way, I found another way to get to school. You know, so people will find a solution.
Oh, they will.
If you don't force them to find a solution, they'll never find a solution.
But there's solutions outside of taking things away, too. I mean, I've read articles about microbes that are being added to waste to break this stuff down faster and eat it. So there's other things in the works as well, so.
No, I don't disagree. Science takes a slightly bit longer than to not buy a bottle.
Doesn't it, though?
On the other hand, I would not want to see the headline on the front page of the Falmouth Enterprise to read that the Finance Committee in Mashpee is against restricting town-owned single-use bottles. Not that that would rise to that level. So even if a few of us dissent, I'd kind of like to see that article be recommended. Let the voters decide.
Any further discussion on Article 10?
I'm gonna go get a bottle of water. I'll be right back.
Hearing none, we'll call for a vote. I'll start with John.
I'm going to change my mind. I'm going to say yes.
Yes.
Yes?
No.
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 All right, we've got a split vote. So at the moment, we are 3 for and 3 against. Which will result in a no recommendation. Anybody want to discuss this further?
Now, question then. So if it's a tie vote that can't be broken unless somebody changes their vote,
Right.
is that the same as voting to take no position on this article?
No.
How is it
How would you
different?
word that?
No, it's not. I don't think it is.
I don't think it's different either.
I think we voted as a 3-3 vote.
Yeah.
So then do we say the Finance Committee recommends approval by a vote or recommends disapproval?
Or takes no action thereof.
Well,
Generally, the motion fails if there's a tie.
Right.
I just don't know what the motion was.
The motion was to recommend.
Right. It was to recommend, so it would result in the Finance Committee does not recommend this article by a 3-3 vote.
That's right.
And that's.
This is why we need 7 members on this board, sooner than later.
That is the way this will stand at the moment, that the Finance Committee does not recommend this article by a vote of 3-3. All right. The next article awaiting our action is Article 18.
Excuse me, Mr. Chair, before you go to 18, on
Yeah.
number 12, I just want to clarify, which is the watercraft one,
Yep,
that your committee took a vote of 5-0 for no recommendation. Is that correct?
yes.
Thank you. That's how I have it. I just want to be sure. it's
Yep,
correct.
that's how we had it.
So 5,
5-0 not to recommend.
thank you.
All right, another question then. So in these instances where we have a tie vote and therefore do not recommend, or in these instances where sometimes we vote to take no position on an article, does that mean that that rationale should be part of our explanation, or do we just offer no
The
explanation?
explanation is just explaining the article. That's all the explanation. It doesn't explain our vote. It's the Finance Committee's explanation of what the article is about.
Unless a member of the Finance Committee chooses on the town meeting floor to comment.
Correct.
Correct.
Who would do that?
You would. And I ask because in many cases, the explanation that accompanies the article by whoever drafted the article is, or our explanation is redundant in many instances. They both say the same thing, maybe with slightly different wordsmithing. So I'm just thinking out loud here, it may be prudent for the Finance Committee to adopt a position in its explanations to explain its thinking where it's appropriate, because that's what the petitioner or the sponsor of the article is doing in their
We are not.
positioning.
We are not instructed to give a position other than our recommendation. We are instructed to provide an explanation of the article. That's all we're instructed to do.
Who so instructs us to do that?
That's the way it's worded in the charter and the bylaws,
Okay.
is that the Finance Committee provides an explanation of the article, of each and every article, whether it pertains to a financial issue or not.
Yeah, I got that part, but, well,
I think.
After
our
hours discussion.
responsibility is to educate the voters as to how we feel about the article for them, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it does create a bit of an issue when we have a split vote and say we make no recommendation because it kind of looks like we don't have enough thought process about the whole thing to care. I understand it's difficult, so I'm not sure what the answer is. But if we say we don't make any recommendation, that's not exactly true. We just came to a tie vote.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, politically, I'm not so sure there's an answer. You know, maybe we could say the Finance Committee cannot make any recommendation due to a tie vote or something like that, but I'm just throwing it out there.
Well, if you change that language, you'd have to change the same thing for the Board of Selectmen. Because what happens if they get, if they had a tie or something like that, right? So, or they couldn't come to an agreement, or someone recused themselves from a vote and they had a tie, so they'd have
That's
to.
why, if we
right.
don't change the language, then I agree with what John said. It might be, Jeff might be on the hook, but it might be responsible for someone on the committee to speak up on the floor, that's all. That way, at least the residents are saying, we weren't asleep at the wheel when we came to discuss this thing, we just couldn't come to agreement.
yeah, and I can remember on occasion, rare as it is at town meeting, if it was a split vote from the Finance Committee, someone in the audience would say, could I ask the Finance Committee why two of your members
That has happened.
voted differently? And then they answer. But I know a year ago, we had this discussion about, you know, if we do have a split vote on any issue, in the interest of unanimity, it was sort of generally agreed that even a 4-3 or 4-2 vote means that the Finance Committee supports whatever that majority vote was, and we wouldn't, you know, go out of our way to provide a dissenting viewpoint.
Well,
Because
we agree.
it's the consensus of the committee.
Yeah, within the.
But,
right.
you know, like, to this
We opened
point.
that opportunity for people, and that year, we just said, no, we're not gonna do it, but
Yeah,
I still think the opportunity's there.
yeah.
And it should be taken advantage of when you have a strong feeling, right? So, no vote, no recommendation at this point.
Okay. Good discussion now.
All right, Article 18.
I have 14 as a whole currently. Is that correct or not?
That's the second stormwater? No, we voted 5-0 to recommend.
5-0 recommend, thank you, sir.
Yeah.
I'm just clearing up because we were working off of notes and I want to be sure we're right because these will go into the new.
In Article 15-2, driveway design.
The drive, that was a 2-3 not to recommend.
Okay, not to recommend.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Which one was that? Which article?
That was Article 15. Yeah, the motion to recommend was voted down 2-3.
Okay.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
So in a case like that, then who, I guess Terry updates these descriptions and so forth. Would it be changed to say, in that case, the Finance Committee does not recommend this article by a vote of 2-3?
Right.
Yes, that
Okay.
is correct. Yep. The next, number 5 will have your votes in it that we can put in.
Okay. Sorry.
Article 18, we had this holding for a dollar amount.
Yes, and the town manager has that for you.
We have three proposed funding sources, one of which would be $200,000, the second would be $250,000, and the third would be $40,200. The $200,000 would come from the hotel motel receipts fund for wastewater. The $250,000 would be repurposed funds from the Joint Base Cape Cod sewer monies. And the $40,200 would come from the capital stabilization rather than a debt exclusion article.
I'm sorry, how much was that, Rodney?
I'm sorry, $40,200.
Thank you.
So that should be $490,200. Now, I want to caution you that there are an additional $155,000 in additional funds needed. Now, there's an ongoing discussion in terms of whether or not these funds would come from the tip or from another source. Do you want to elaborate on that?
We're going to check with the Cape Cod Commission and others. The 155 may not or may be available through the tip, which is what the majority of the road project is funded through the state. But we're not sure because it's design and engineering regarding the sewer, whether or not that can go on to the tip or not. So we have to clarify that. And the other thing is that Article 18, this is what we're proposing. It has not been accepted yet by the board.
So you're not going for a debt exclusion for this, at this time?
That is correct. Initially, it was thought to be a debt exclusion, and we missed the deadline in August. And then there was discussion relative to taking it out of free cash. There was a lively discussion with the selectmen regarding that issue. And it brought us to what I just described. So at this point, what I just provided you has to be brought before the selectmen on September 14th. I'm going to caution you, they haven't voted on this yet. And then secondly, assuming they do, I still don't have clarity for you folks on the 155. And we're going along as quickly as we can, but when things change, we gotta try to change with them. And we're giving you the information in a timely fashion, but unfortunately, at this point, that's all I have for you.
Okay, that's fine.
I mean, you're moving some monies around there that were designated for other things.
Yes, sir.
So,
Not entirely.
not entirely.
If I may.
Well, when I say yes, sir, I meant we are moving some things around, not necessarily for a different purpose. It's still for wastewater.
And it falls
But
within the
are we moving
guidelines?
things around? Yes, we are. Or I should say, yes, we are, if we agree to it.
Right.
For instance, the 200,000 from the hotel motel is the 75% set aside for sewer that was voted at town meeting. The 250,000 for the repurpose of Joint Base Cape Cod was for sewer to get to Joint Base Cape Cod by
Gotcha.
way of 151.
Gotcha.
So we're just repurposing an article that was designated for sewer purposes. And the capital stabilization is where we can get the additional 40,000, I don't know, yeah, 40,200.
I'd just like to kind of reiterate my comment from the last meeting, too, about the potential of setting a precedent here of approaching the design and subsequent construction of the sewer system on kind of a piecemeal ad hoc basis. Because to my way of thinking, you know, everything that's being done here by any other name would be a capitalized cost in connection with the design of the wastewater system for the town. You know, next year, it might be a different street that's going to be repaved, and we need to anticipate infrastructure related to the sewer. So if we keep kind of juggling the funding sources on these smaller ad hoc projects, and there are more than one or two, we could suddenly wind up with sort of a patchwork approach to a townwide design of a sewer system that would have an entirely different funding mechanism if it were all contemplated and designed from the get-go. So I have a little anxiety that this might open the door to that sort of discrete thinking as opportunities present themselves, rather than incorporating it into a broader design or plan for the townwide system, if you follow me.
And if I could respond.
Yep.
I just want to make it clear that when I referred to the lively discussion that the board had, it was on the funding source. I believe it is our responsibility as professionals to provide them with opportunities to consider. We give them options. We're not the policymakers, the board is, and we put the options on the table. They give us the ultimate policy-making decision, and we implement that to the best of our ability. At this point, I've been instructed to come up with a funding mechanism essentially consistent with what I just described. So, yes, it still has to go back before the board, but that was the last discussion that we had on whatever day it was that we had our last meeting, August 31st, I believe.
Yes, yeah. I think, John, what you're saying, I understand what you're saying, but from our standpoint, the policy was the direction that we have to follow.
I understand, and I wasn't directing this at your office or you. If anything, it's through you to the Board of Selectmen. And I know they're all enlightened enough on this whole topic not to, not to be cavalier about these sort of one-off opportunities to do the right thing. But I'm just concerned that next year, next month, 6 months from now, there might be another one. So if the design of a townwide sewage system, the design of it is going to cost, who knows, pick a number, $8 million, just to throw one out there, versus the 2.4 that we're doing for the plant, it would be better to kind of have our arms around that townwide number sooner than later. Otherwise, we'll be dealing with this on more than one occasion, I think.
The $250,000 that you got included in there, that was to be directed for Joint Base Cape Cod, is that correct?
It's for sewerage to get to Joint Base Cape Cod and whatever might need to be collected, yes.
And will the line they're putting in there take that to Joint Base Cape Cod?
It'll take it to Old Barnstable Road.
Old Barnstable Road.
So they're repurposing that money for something other than what it was intended for when it was voted on, is that correct? I mean, that's what it looks like to me. I could be wrong.
I think, if I could, the primary objective was, while we're renovating and doing this project on 151, let's put the pipe down so we don't do all of this work and then tear it up again, and people say, why didn't they put this down when they had the opportunity?
I get that.
So obviously, that was the concern of the board, and again, I don't speak for the board, but, you know, the bottom line is, we're trying to satisfy their expectations in terms of what they wanted brought back to them, and this is an option versus doing it out of free cash, or versus doing a debt exclusion, which we missed the deadline on. Then it gets into the debate in terms of whether to do it in October or May, and then the selectmen said, we'll do it in October, but we gotta have a different formula in terms of funding.
Right.
And that's what you have before you.
So, yeah, they're talking about 151 for a long time, and with the state and everything else, it seems like it's been something we wanted to do for a long time. And it sounds to me like it's an opportunity to get it done, and at the same time, as you say, we have to do something with the sewers. But that was not expected as part of the overall sewer plan, so rather than skip that, or dig into what has been probably put aside for our plan, to come up with alternative ways to do it, that's how I read it. It's something that's gonna benefit everybody, but rather than take the money away from the plans on board for the sewers, try to find another funding source to get this piece done, which was not on the plan in the first place. I mean, that's how I read it. I don't know.
But to get back to your question, Mr. McGelvey, the situation with the base has changed. What we originally thought was going to happen and how quickly it was going to happen has changed in light of who's going to take over the running of that plant at the base and so on.
Which we don't even know.
We don't
Right.
even know now. It is
kind of up in the air.
dramatically. Yeah. So this is a way that we think, rather than try to find more money, let's repurpose the money we have.
And since COVID-19 struck, I dare say since March, there have been no meetings relative to Joint Base Cape Cod.
So, just indulge me a little bit more. Would this?
We always indulge.
I know you're very patient, thank you.
We indulge John, too. I'm only kidding, Mr.
What a
Chair.
burden. The line that's being put in there, is that intended for phase 2, or phase 3, or phase 1?
That's the key question.
That is the key question,
Probably
isn't
would
it?
have been phase 2, wouldn't it?
No,
No?
that's the key question.
So what phase would it be, Mr.?
This is just to Old Barnstable Road from the rotary.
I believe is it 4?
I believe it's 4.
So I understood this as,
You asked the question.
I did ask the question, and I'm going to elaborate on
Actually, I
the
think
question.
Half of it's 4 and the other side is 3.
Okay.
You asked the question, and I answered.
Yes. So I remember discussion about, putting in this sewer plant. And I remember I've heard it said more than once that we may not need more than phase 1 or phase 2. So this is going on to phase 3 and 4. So someone's intending to have at least 4 segments. And if you're having 4 segments, you're going to be paying a boatload of money for 4 segments down the road. So someone's planning all the segments. And we've been told, well, maybe we won't have all the segments. So something's not right there, in my estimation. Because if it's for phase 3, that's supposed to be years down the road. Or phase 4, that's years down the road. And from what I see in the plans. So,
I'm not arguing with you, sir.
so I'm just,
We're following the policy of the board.
I understand that. Well, the board needs to tell people that they're on board for all 5 phases. And they'll probably just be spending up to $200 to $300 million for all these phases, and our taxes will go up. And that's what I'm concerned about overall for the citizens of the town of Mashpee. So, thank you.
I will say that I have heard from the sewer commissioner that we may not need more than 2 phases.
So, with all the discussion,
Thank you for your indulgence.
since we don't have a solid amount, I'm going to propose that we hold off on taking action on this article.
If we need to, if the selectmen are meeting on the 14th to decide on this, as well as executing the whole warrant, and our final report needs to be submitted by the following Thursday, we probably need to do something between the 14th and the 17th to address this
We'll have a meeting that Thursday.
on Thursday?
Yes, after their meeting on Monday, I am planning us meeting on that Thursday.
17th, okay.
Because we'll have to at least vote on that article definitely.
Right.
To take care of that, we'll also have to actually take a vote, because there is one more article that is going to be in draft 5. We can't take action on it because they haven't put it in the warrant yet, but there's one more article, which is the, for the ambulance receipt funds of $55,095. So we'll have 2 articles we'll definitely have to take action on after they execute the warrant. So that's all the ones we can actually take action on at the moment.
Can I ask, just make another comment if I can? One of the things is I look at the article as it's written, obviously the article will change, but if they plan to go through with what they're proposing here, will it be made more clear in the article?
I'm sorry, sir, what article are you?
Article, I'm back on 18 for just a second.
Oh, you're back to 18?
I'm back on 18.
I should have known.
So if they're going to propose this, will they make it clear that, that these are monies coming out from these funds?
Yes.
Because the word, here in this 18, it says the selectmen to borrow at one time. So the word borrow's in there, which means indicating loan, some type of loan. I don't know if that's, that may change the terminology is what I'm saying. I think
Which article are you talking about?
18.
I'm talking 18.
And it says to borrow at one time or from time to time.
I love that phrasing.
That clears
I'm
it
going to
up.
borrow one time, or maybe I'll borrow from time to time.
Generally, these are written by general counsel.
Would you tell him to make it sound like a layperson could read this? I'd appreciate that.
But
I know that's
I
not,
think there will be a rewrite on that a little bit.
They may have to change it on the floor, right?
Yeah, yeah. And, Mr. Chair, you can vote on that life pack. That was added to the selectmen's, the way you have it written there, if you choose to. If you'd rather wait, you're certainly welcome to.
I personally would rather wait until it's actually in the warrant.
Okay, that's fine. They did vote to approve and add it, so.
Okay.
It goes on to just indicate contingent upon a Prop 2.5 exclusion, too.
it does.
So,
So it has to be rewritten.
Yes,
Yeah.
definitely. I think what they did is drop the number and they didn't, they just highlighted where it was coming from the top. They did not change there.
And I understand the argument that, you know, maybe somewhere down the road, we might get some federal money if things are in place and yada, yada. But that's phase 3 and 4. So I don't know, you know, somebody must have a really good crystal ball, because I've not seen a dime of that money yet. So,
All right, I would like us to move on to taking a look at the explanations we have so far.
Mr. Chairman, I would like to make I wasn't here last week, and I'd like to have my my vote counted on Article 16, and I'd like to make a motion to rescind that article,
Which one?
Article 16,
The climate change,
the climate change. I'd like to make a motion to rescind that article and then re-vote that article so my vote can be counted.
so we've got a motion to rescind the vote on Article 16. Is there a second?
I just want my voice added to the debate, that's all.
We've got a motion to rescind the vote.
And then we can
Looking for a
re-vote,
second.
you can vote the same way, I just want to add my vote to it. No one will give me a second.
I will second the motion.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, I appreciate that.
Call for a vote. Mr. Miller?
Any discussion?
I just want to be able to add my voice to the vote, because I wasn't here last week, and I'd like my vote recorded in the record, regardless of how I vote.
All right. The only reason, what was our vote on that?
It's 5-0 to recommend.
Discussion then. My concern is if we rescind the vote and any of those 5 people have changed their mind, particularly as the result of your lobbying effort tonight, and through no fault of anybody else that did vote last week, your absence was regrettable, but that's what happens when a member's not here. So to recreate that opportunity for you, because of your unavoidable absence, I'm a little uncomfortable with it, with all due respect.
So to recreate that opportunity for you, because of the avoidable absence, I'm a little uncomfortable with it, with all
I
due
think
respect.
I already heard that part.
Recreate that opportunity for you,
You have to ask whoever's on the mute.
Kathy, can you go on mute, please? Thank you.
So, John, to your point.
A compromise would be, I'd be willing, if everyone else is agreeable, to allow Mr. McKelvey to comment on the article that we've already taken action on without rescinding it or revoting it.
Just as a point of reference, so in the past, throughout the years that I've served since 2016, we have been allowed to do that if the committee agrees. And if they don't agree, that's up to the committee. I respect their decision. And you're right. I mean, someone may have had some time to think about things over the week, and the vote could change. But any member, to my knowledge, can request any article or any recommendation to be rescinded at any time to reconsider. So that's all I'm doing tonight. I'm not asking anybody to change their vote, but I'm just telling, I just would like my vote added. And I understand your concern, and I appreciate it.
With love, I'll vote no.
In respect.
I'll vote yes. I mean, you could also have step on the floor during the meeting to make your comments as well. Didn't have to be done this way. But from protocol perspective, you're a member of the group. I want to hear what you have to say. I'll vote yes.
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 All right. So the vote has been rescinded.
So I'll make a motion, we accept Article 16. Is it 16?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yes.
Motion to recommend Article 16. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Got a motion and second on Article 16 to recommend. Discussion.
Well, I mentioned it at the last meeting I was here, and as I look at this, there's just no teeth in this. I mean, I think this town does an incredible job to support the environment and support all kinds of projects that support the land, the water, and everything. I mean, we're getting electric cars, we're cleaning up ponds, we're spending money on things. If you don't know, if you live in Mashpee and you don't know that this town is environmentally friendly and conscious, then you've been in a hole somewhere, because it is. And I don't need an article that someone else wrote to tell me that the town's doing what it's doing already. Now, I heard the argument that, well, we may get some federal money out of it someday. Again, somebody's got a really good crystal ball, because I've not seen any of that federal money come down. So I just believe that the town does a great job with its resources and managing its resources, is very conscientious through conservation and through the wastewater folks. I think we're doing it already. I don't think I need anyone to tell me that we're doing it already, because I can see that. And I don't think this is a necessary article for us, and I would vote no on it. Thank you.
We are getting electric cars, thanks to you.
Counterpoint?
Please.
There's no moss on your logic, I'll give you that. That's usual. I kind of liken this, even though the motivation and circumstances are entirely different, to the proposed proclamation in support of the police department and I guess the fire department, or any town department. The difference is that was had politically charged overtones to it, but using much the same logic that the town already is fully supportive of its law enforcement facilities and public safety people, that therefore there is no need to issue such a proclamation. So you're kind of saying the same thing here with respect to our environmental prowess.
Correct. It's
Protection.
exactly what I'm saying.
So on that level, I understand your logic and how it is distinguished from that proposed proclamation. But in this case, because it's not politically charged or spawned by regional or national events that we all find abhorrent, quite the opposite. This is something that we welcome and embrace and want to promote our advocacy of. So I'm not one for just issuing words for the sake of having words on the record, but I see no harm done, and I think any opportunity that we have as a town to ratify exactly what you just said, that this is something that is important and persistent in the town's culture, is a good thing to do, and we should support that.
Let's call a vote.
The question has been called. John?
This is a vote to
Recommend Article
Yes,
16.
yes.
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 No. Thank you.
The vote to recommend
Thank
is
you.
5-1. All right. Now, if we can move on to the explanations. What I'm gonna ask is whoever wrote the explanation to read the explanation. And then we can discuss them. So I wrote the explanation for Article 1, which is for the unissued bonds and notes. This article authorizes the rescinding of authorized bonds and notes which were not issued because they were not needed. That's a correction. Should be not instead of note. Needed to fund the projects for which they were authorized. Removing these unissued amounts will improve the town's financial statements by reducing the amount of liabilities which the town carries. Any comments, feedback? Everybody's fine with that? All right. John, you've got Article 2.
This article appropriates and transfers $1,573,927 for FY 2021 reserves. As required by state law, 30% of this amount, or $472,179, is set aside in equal 10% increments, or $157,393 each, for open space recreation, historic preservation, and affordable housing purposes. The remaining 70%, or $1,089,748, is used at the town's discretion within the parameters of the Community Preservation Act and establishes the budget value for appropriation in FY 2021. Funding for CPA projects comes from a 3% surcharge on real estate property taxes and variable matching funds from the state. Projects are identified and recommended for town meeting approval by the Community Preservation Committee. The use of funds is ultimately approved or acted upon by town meeting voters. Parentheses, note, at the spring 2020 town meeting, the CPA funding was reduced by voters from 3% to 2%, effective with the 2022 fiscal year. And I added that footnote for the same reason that others might wonder what happened to the 1% difference. Jeff reminded me that that was for next fiscal year, not the current one, or not this one.
So my first comment is, I don't know if we need to put all the amounts in the explanation.
The only reason I did is because the way the math is different, and the layman is not going to, the 1.573 million is not really part of the article, I don't think. Let me look at it here. Right, that number doesn't show in the article. It shows in the explanation offered by the Community Preservation Committee, but it's not in the article. So part of the reason for that detail was just to show how you got to what the total is.
The 157 in your explanation is not the same as the article either. The article's 161,393.
Oh, that's interesting. Where did I get that? I wonder if it was different in an earlier version. No, it's not. All right, well, that's a good catch. Okay. Well, you're right. I just did the arithmetic, so the 161 is right.
Is it it's 161?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I don't feel strongly about it. If we want to truncate this without the numbers, that's fine.
My view of what these explanations are, it's supposed to be as simple an explanation for the common person to make a decision on. You know, and how likely is the common citizen gonna spend time reading an explanation that's that long? Is the only thing I'm looking at. You know, I'd like these to be as concise and clear as possible, so that somebody looking at it can tell, all right, this is what the article is about, am I in favor of it or not? But that's how I'm looking at it. I'm open to what the rest of the committee feels.
I can't remember or not, do the explanations get read at the meeting?
No.
No.
It's just taking up space, I think. I mean, I understand, I think short is better sometimes, but, you know, John's writing looks really good to me, so just, you know, let it go.
No pride of authorship, I don't mind if it's abbreviated, curtailed, truncated, shortened. I'm quite happy with just the explanation that follows the article,
Right.
right? Why say the same thing again? But if you like, rather than wordsmith it here, I could just make another pass and send it around and
Okay,
take out half of the words.
that
And
sounds fine.
correct the numbers if they stay at all.
All right,
But what about that last line in there? That was just sort of a FYI looking ahead, but
I
again,
don't think it's necessarily needed.
all right. But memo to ourselves,
Right.
next year, that number, 1.5 million, is gonna be 1/3 less.
Right, that may be when it comes time for the town meeting next time. It may be relevant to put that, a note like that in there.
Right.
To prevent anybody asking, wait a minute, wasn't it 3%?
Yeah, I'm
In
good
that
with
case,
it.
you get that article next year.
Got half written already.
Yeah, right.
That's true.
All right, Article 3, dredging article, Darlene.
Services no longer included in the standard Barnstable County dredge contract would be provided to perform channel dredging surveys for the 1916 channel and Pompanesett Inner Channel. Clear as mud to me, and I wrote it.
Beautifully done.
Mm-hmm. I think that sounds fine. Any other comment on that? All right, Article 4, Greg.
This article attempts to move funds collected from the sale of cemetery plots at the Great Neck Road Cemetery into the budgeted account, so those monies can be spent for allocated budget items in conjunction with the cemetery. Open to suggestions, comments, reflections.
Is attempts the right word?
I don't know.
That would be unique in our vocabulary.
It would.
Yeah,
Like I said, open.
normally we're looking for,
Seeks.
Seeks.
Seeks to move funds.
Seeks
Much
and you
better
shall
word.
find.
let's see, actually, the way it's worded is appropriate, this article appropriates and transfers is probably the better way of phrasing it. Because
It's layman, buddy.
Well, it already says that in the article itself, so. I'm good with what Greg has here, although I like seeks better than attempts.
Yeah, seeks is good.
Or the other way, this article authorizes the movement of funds.
That's okay, too.
All right, I'm good with that.
All right.
These aren't my strong suits.
All right, Article 5. I drafted this one. This is for the unpaid invoices. This article authorizes the appropriation and transfer of $80 from revenue available for appropriation to allow a bill pertaining to the previous fiscal year to be paid because it was not received in time to process for payment during that fiscal year. The only thing I would amend is that, based on the explanation tonight, saying what it was to reimburse an employee for services,
Professional training,
professional development.
professional development, right. I agree. Jeff, I'm sorry, back on number 4, the Great Neck Road needs caps on that previous article.
Oh, yep.
Oh, you're right, thank you.
Article 6.
6, 7, 8, and 9 were all mine. We didn't have the dollar figure, and I guess that's the question. I basically said the article seeks to fund from revenue available for appropriation the negotiated adjustments to administrators Unit A, Unit B, Public Works A, and same language on all four. I don't know if you want to put the dollar figures in there, whether that's necessary or not. I don't think so.
I don't think so, but we may want to add that it was for a 3-year contract for the first year.
Identify the
The-
Labor's International Union, labor, all that, but,
What's that?
do you want to add that? I didn't think that was necessary either. Employee local 1249, people know.
No,
what
I
a
don't
union
think that's all that important.
No.
But I just think that we want to add the statement that it was for the first year of a 3-year contract.
is. Yeah, that's fine with
I
that.
agree.
I think that's good, it informs the people that, you
Yeah.
know, this is all taken care of for the next 3 years.
Right, exactly.
And in the same spirit, I don't think most people grasp the concept of revenue available for appropriation. So maybe we should just also clarify that this does not require any newly appropriated funds. It's not a request for funds,
Yeah.
however you would wordsmith that, but.
Yeah, that revenue available for appropriation has been the same language for 30 years.
Right.
Yeah,
So
but the
some know
average,
it, some don't know it.
Or this
I think
this
we
will
should,
not increase.
We used to add that at the end of our,
Yeah.
that it would have no impact on the,
well, that's
Tax rate.
that's what I'm suggesting.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, that's a good idea.
I mean, I think part of our,
that used to go at the end of all of the articles with money in them.
Right.
I think that's a good idea. I mean, I assume part of our job in these explanations is to make them relevant to the uninformed.
I think we put that,
And nobody other than us knows what revenue available is.
I think we put that, the no impact on the tax rate in the letter. Which is sort of spoke,
I think that's what we did last year,
yeah, it spoke for the whole warrant as compared to
Yeah.
each time.
I would put it in each one, because I don't think people read the letter.
I mean, after all that work we did last year.
I know, as painful as it is, all those charts, all that hard work that Phil did.
All right, so everybody fine with those additions to 6, 7, 8, and 9?
Yeah.
All right. That brings us to Article 10, which is the plastic
This is,
bottles. This is you, Mike?
I would add some language. This article, with the exception of Greg McKelvey, seeks to prohibit, no. I just basically, I tried to say,
I
make
did
it
not
short.
vote alone, my
It seeks to
friend.
prohibit the town of Mashpee, the town itself, from purchasing, and additionally from selling, any beverage in a single plastic use container on town property, with 2 exceptions. 1, when involved in safety operations, and 2, in the event of a declaration of emergency, both to be further defined. I have a funny feeling that even if the warrant goes as it is, those 2 issues, when is a safety operation? That's not defined. So that's how I put it, that's why I put that way.
Yep.
Guess that means you can't buy nips at the town clerk's office anymore, huh?
Well,
Unless it's in
no,
a glass.
If it's in glass, it's okay.
Glass nip is okay. You're right.
So I don't know if that's okay with you guys. I want to keep it short.
It's fine with me.
The
All right,
article speaks, the article speaks for itself.
Yeah.
Actually, I think it does a good job of clarifying the fact that we're just talking about what the town buys,
Right.
you know? It's
Well, the
not-
town
it's
includes
not-
the-
It's not saying, we're saying you can't have single-use plastic
Well,
in
then,
its facility or anything. It's just you can't, the town is not gonna spend town money on it.
then should-
Well, I don't know if it says, excuse me, Pat, I think it outlaws those vending machines. So
Yeah.
you can't.
Well, in town property.
Right, so town property is not only, well, not only this building, it's the DPW building, it's the schools as well.
That's right.
So,
But
so-
that's why you could, town property, and you could have, you could say, maybe, you know,
town properties.
I think one word that should go in is the article seeks to prohibit only the town of Mashpee. To emphasize that it's not a,
Well, town Well,
It's
you gotta be
to
more,
prohibit the town of Mashpee from purchasing.
Well, we have no jurisdiction over other towns, so it's sort
Well,
of,
yeah,
an-
but this is
This is-
just the town itself.
but it's not,
It
it's not,
doesn't affect
it's
the
not the
public.
homeowners, the
Mhm.
homeowners, the people that live here.
This article seeks to prohibit the town of Mashpee from purchasing and selling
You
any.
could.
But you're
I
right,
didn't
that
know.
people can read that and think
Well,
it's the whole town.
Pat, Pat could say, the town could be the whole town.
Well, that's, exactly.
how about, Pat, if a sentence was added, this does not apply to individuals?
Well, it also doesn't apply to the grocery stores or the stores, so you can, I see what Pat's saying.
Well, that's true.
Right, right. It's talking about town property exclusively.
Yeah,
Town
It does say town property.
And I was thinking, you know, it might,
Maybe you bold that. Put that in bold.
Yeah, maybe you should.
to the extent that people think of the schools and the town of Mashpee as separate entities, I was thinking it might be good to make the schools
And then, you know.
part of the town and Mashpee schools.
DPW, I mean, you could,
Yeah,
if people understood the town of Mashpee to be
The seat.
the actual municipal body, that's one thing, but I don't know if they, you're right.
They could misunderstand it.
Well,
I think
the
that
other
would-
thing could be to clarify that prohibit the use of town funds for purchasing.
Is that what it does, though?
That's a little different, I think,
No, because I'm,
although it's a,
That's interesting.
yeah, that is interesting, but
I
that's,
mean, because the town, looking at the town hall as the town of Mashpee, they can't use town money to buy single-use containers.
but we can have residents read this and say, I live in the town of Mashpee, I'm not gonna be able to buy it.
You could say town of Mashpee, parentheses, municipality. I don't know, you could say.
I know,
I don't know how you'd say it.
This article seeks to prohibit the town of
Mike, figure it out, you wrote it.
I know it. I mean, I think it makes sense to those that are in the arena, but it might be a little confusing for the public.
This article
And the other ones that are,
attempts
we're supposed to recommend, so.
This article attempts to prohibit.
I've said my piece.
What was the explanation, in the warrant?
about the article seeks to prohibit any town, agency, or entity
They say by the town of Mashpee in the explanation.
from purchasing and additionally from selling.
Or this article seeks to prohibit the purchase and sale of any single-use plastic container on any property owned by the town of Mashpee. Or governed by the town of Mashpee.
My guess
I
is,
say town property, so that means the same thing. But I don't know, town of Mashpee is where it gets a little skewy. I think it's pretty clear. I think most people will know what they're saying. By the time it gets out there, they're gonna know.
well, they'll be commenting on it, and those questions could be answered at that time.
And by the way, it's gonna be,
Clarification.
there'll be people on the floor related to you that will get up and ask all kinds of questions about this whole thing. So it'll become clear.
there'll be a lively discussion
Don't you
on
think?
this.
Really?
I do.
Yeah, as it should be.
Yeah.
Democracy at its best.
So are we,
It's not gonna pass,
I have no idea.
so it probably doesn't much matter what
are
I
we
say.
fine with what Mike has written when we're all said and done here?
Let's go with it.
All right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Let it go, let me think about it, if I can find another way to put it, but I don't know.
Okay. Article 11, Darlene.
With the implementation of the short-term rental registration and inspection program, it is anticipated that the health department could process more than 900 license and registration renewals yearly. To manage the workflow efficiently, the department recommends staggering the dates. The short-term rental certificates would expire March 31st, and the online renewals would begin February 1st of each year. They also request some latitude with issuing temporary rental certificates if it becomes difficult to do so prior to the beginning of the rental season.
Nicely done.
Thank you.
It's gonna be so confusing to people that aren't even
Oh, I know,
gonna,
I know.
unless they own a rental.
And then they're angry to start with.
All right, so. Sounds like we're all good with 11. With 12, is regarding the Lakeborne watercraft. This article authorizes the amending of Chapter 170, subsection 6B of the Town of Mashpee bylaw to add language prohibiting the use of personal watercrafts on Asherment Pond. This language duplicates language in the Town of Falmouth bylaws regarding the prohibition of these crafts on Asherment Pond, which is bordered by both towns. This will bring not only, oh, good, okay, I'll do that right there. This will not only bring Mashpee bylaws in alignment with Falmouth on this matter, but will also improve both towns and states' ability to enforce the ban.
Looks good. In the interest of word economy, you probably don't have to repeat the chapter reference there.
Okay,
Just amending the town bylaw.
okay.
Looks good to me.
It's interesting that thing was passed by Falmouth in 1989,
Yeah, I know.
and it still sits around,
Yeah,
40 years, 30
Some
years
things take a
later.
while.
And most of the lake is in Mashpee supposedly.
Yeah.
yes.
So here we are.
And yet there's no way to get to it, onto it publicly in Mashpee.
You just write the word uncle. We just gave up after 40 years.
All right, Article 13, Pat.
Okay, the article adds a new subsection which sets forth updated pre-construction steps and criteria for site plan review for stormwater compliance. I concentrated on, because the only thing different from what's there now, they added that paragraph B, which was site plan review, the changes in it.
This is one of those ones where they're gonna say, we waive the reading of the article.
Yeah.
So that's,
Looks pretty environmental friendly to me.
No further comments? That sounds good.
That's better than their explanation.
Yeah.
Well, what I did is I tried to concentrate on what are the changes, because
Yeah.
you've already got a bylaw in place.
Right,
So
correct,
instead of, they're not revoting what's already in place, they're really voting on the change of it.
Right,
I wasn't sure if that was the way to do it, but it made sense to me when I do amendments to documents. And I explain it to people that are voting on it. I tell them, here's what's different than it was before.
Right.
Otherwise, if it fails, well, everything else is still there.
And my guess is when the planning board presents it, they would articulate what's different here
Yes,
versus,
they can go the step by step.
yeah.
Article 14, Pat.
This article adds phosphorus to the list of chemicals to be reduced to protect the natural resources, describes the required standards for the design of treatment and filtration practices of stormwater management systems, and incorporates these provisions to include roadway widening and an increase in impervious area under redevelopment. Again, I concentrated on the changes.
Yeah. Yeah, I remember Evans said that the word redevelopment was new to the bylaw too, in addition to phosphorus,
So basically, phosphorus was the big addition, redevelopment, and
but you cover it there.
I think the only change I've got, the comma needs to be added. I think it sounds great.
These regulations apply to golf courses?
believe golf courses
Right,
are, s-
they're very strict.
I don't know, I'm just curious, because the phosphorus are usually fertilizers, what they're talking about,
Yeah,
right?
no, they've been very strict for many years. I don't know specifically what the
I'm asking in general.
yeah, no, well, I only know that from our place. I know I've spoken to the gentleman that oversees it, and there are great restrictions.
I can't imagine that golf courses would be exempt from the zoning bylaw,
No, I can't either.
but who knows?
All right, Article 15, Darlene.
Is phosphorus considered a chemical? I guess it is.
yeah,
It's in fertilizer, I guess.
oh, yes.
I'm trying to think of its periodic number.
All right, Article 15.
To meet the Massachusetts standard specifications for paving all parking areas and driveways, this article specifies a change to the required thickness of the dense graded crushed stone or reclaimed asphalt. The paving is to be 8 inches, or if using a good binding gravel or suitable base material, to 12 inches. The article specifies how the parcel should be properly shaped, compacted, and subsoil clear of roots and replaced with solid fill if necessary to support the finished surface. All parking areas are to have a minimum of 3 inches of paved surface.
How'd you guys vote on that?
16.
2 to 3, not to recommend.
Just curious why. You guys remember?
Added expense for the homeowner, but
Yeah.
it's their driveway.
That's true.
I mean, and who's going to measure it and enforce it too?
That's a very good question. Very good question. Yeah, I agree.
We run into this in redevelopment of with condos all the time. Engineers actually come in, their specs say how much they're going to be put down, and that gets measured.
Right.
But that's an expense of a large parking area.
Sure it is.
Or an entrance street, but on someone's personal driveway.
That's big money. Asphalt's big money.
Yes. And so the added cost to the homeowner who doesn't want that.
Right. Right. Interesting.
Everybody all right with
Fine
that?
with me.
I like it.
All right. Article 16, Mike.
This article, I'm trying to keep it short, seeks to enjoin all Mashpee residents in an effort to attack climate change by supporting through their personal willingness activities that help manage our land, biodiversity, and natural resources as a way to reduce our town's vulnerability to climate change. Kind of a mouthful of shit, but
Kumbaya is all I can say.
Oh, my goodness.
And that's all this is. I mean, my opinion.
I felt like when I was writing it, that, shit, that makes sense to me, but I don't know.
No, it's a kumbaya article.
Yeah, right.
It has no teeth, it's got no real effect, but it'll make everybody feel good.
Except Greg.
I almost want to say, the article, merely puts out there that the town of Mashpee is supporting all efforts to attack climate change, That's all it is. It's just putting a statement out there that's saying, yeah, we're about this as a town.
It's funny, when you think about it, we were the first town on the Cape to be designated as a green community. And I was a selectman back then. And since that time, we haven't done as much as other towns have done to improve the environment. So this is probably part and parcel of people, I know what you're saying, we do a lot, but there's been a lot of other things that have been done around the Cape that we need to sort of catch up with. Maybe that's one of those things that people feel we haven't done enough, I don't know. It doesn't hurt anything.
Well, I just don't know how you get to a zero emissions,
No.
right? And that's what the article says.
How about impossible?
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
Any changes, revisions to this, the way Mike's got it written?
That's good.
I think it's fine.
Fine.
All right. Article 17, John.
I think next year I'll petition an article that the town of Mashpee embraces the U.S. Constitution and democracy as a form of government. See how that goes. Anyway.
We already got that.
Hey, where's your tripod hat?
I'm going to make a two-word change here as I read this, but this article provides the town with the necessary ability to design Phase 1 of the Route 151 Corridor Improvement Project from the Mashpee Rotary to just beyond the intersection with Old Barnstable Road. In particular, this article gives the town several legal options necessary to construct the improvements consistent with the approved plans in cases where private property overlaps the project layout. Most of these instances are small parts of larger property, but are necessary for construction and line-of-sight enhancement. Delete it is, I think. Yeah. That's enough.
You're striking the rest of it then?
What about the rest of the
You had
sentence?
it anticipated to be little or no
Anticipated
cost.
Oh, there is something, I'm sorry. Turn the page. It is anticipated there'll be little or no cost to accomplish this, however, it provides the town with flexibility in response to the circumstances of each property.
My question is, it says a little no cost. Well, it's cost to someone. A little or no cost to whom?
Well, let that be determined. I'm basing that on what Catherine Laurent said, that they're mostly, like postage-sized parcels where they might have a sign or something. So they'll probably negotiate that with each property owner and figure out who's
You
gonna.
led us to believe it'd be very small, right?
Yeah, I think she said there was a couple that were,
Yeah, I think
larger.
The larger ones was a stoplight change, but on
Right.
Job's Road, but I mean, that's, they'll agree to that, why wouldn't they, to get a more efficient traffic light?
Right,
Okay, I agree with you, leave it as is, good job.
okay.
All right. Article 18, John.
18, turn the page. This article provides funding to mitigate costly after-the-fact design of wastewater and stormwater collection systems in connection with the Route 151 Corridor Improvement Project. In so doing, the reconstruction of Route 151 can take into account and make cost-effective provisions for the future construction of waste and stormwater collection systems, and a desirable alternative to not planning for this infrastructure in advance. This approach consolidates these efforts and assigns the financing to the Route 151 project.
I think it's right on point.
Yeah.
All right. Probably Article 19. Mike?
This is the new one.
Yeah. This is for the ambulance receipt.
The article seeks to have the town vote to transfer $55,095 from the ambulance receipt account to the fire department capital accounts for the purpose of purchasing desperately needed cardiac monitor defibrillators for each of the 3 ambulances, replacing outdated, not serviceable, and not replaceable present equipment. And I added it was recently approved by the Capital Improvement Committee, which it was, so that they know it wasn't something that just. I mean, obviously, Tom Rulo had not made any effort to replace these things that were 9 years old, but apparently he didn't realize that the motherboard was not serviceable. So if they went down, if one of them went down, the ambulance went down, so. And they're $50,000 a piece on the market as a general rule, but the company, realizing our position, gave us a deal, because a lot of the affiliated equipment that goes with it is still usable. So that's the history of it.
It's for 3 of them, right?
3 of them.
Oh, it
But
says-
the 55 is for all 3.
Right, it says that here, okay.
Well done.
The only thing I would change is to just add to appropriate and transfer.
Okay.
Or authorize and transfer, appropriate and transfer, that's what it is, to it. And I don't know if we need to say the amount again.
The what?
If we need to say the amount in the explanation. Just appropriate and transfer funds from,
Oh, it's from the ambulance receipt.
right.
But it'll be in the article, right?
Right, just to make it say, vote to appropriate and transfer funds from, because we've already got the dollar amount is in the article, so we don't need to restate the dollar amount.
Yep, okay.
Yeah, that's all. But other than that, I think it's a good explanation.
You know, I'm reading my Article 14, that's a run-on sentence, so where after it says stormwater system, management systems, period, the article also incorporates the provision. I think that gets away with that big run-on sentence. Third line. you
Yeah,
know.
third line down.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so instead of and, substitute the article also with a period. That makes it just a little cleaner.
I'm missing it.
Yeah.
Jeff, are you going to pass this on to Kathy?
I'll take and make what edits I've got here.
Okay,
I can't imagine Kathy hearing on the phone with everybody in a mask.
I know.
John, you're gonna redo your Article 2?
Right,
All right, you send that to me and I'll put that in here.
okay, I'll do that tomorrow.
So the third line, all right, Pat, I'm just missing,
It's right here,
where,
where management systems,
period?
that
Period.
period.
Okay.
The article also. It just makes it,
Okay,
instead of a run-on sentence.
all right.
And on 17, Jeffrey, did you get that change I read there, to design instead of to complete in the
Yes.
first sentence? Okay.
Yeah, I did get
So
that
I'll
one.
just send you Article 2.
Yeah,
Okay.
I think we're good on that.
I only asked you that because I didn't know whether you wanted me to send it, but I'll.
No,
Okay,
no, that's all right,
okay.
because I've got an edit I've gotta make, a couple I did, so.
And Kathy will make most of the changes that you heard tonight, so.
If she can hear us through our,
Did you-
Right, so easiest for me to just go ahead and make the edits, and I'll send it all to Kathy, once John gives me his rewrite. All right, so that takes us through that. I've got no additional topics to bring up. So, next meeting.
next meeting.
So, does anybody at this point see a need to meet next week?
I do not.
I think we're in pretty good shape.
I think so too, with these edits and everything. So that would be the 10th we don't need. We will need to meet on the 17th, because that will be after they enact the warrant. And we'll be able to take the last two final votes. The explanations will are all taken care of. So then they'll be ready to put this to bed.
Yeah. Sometime between now and the 17th, would you draft this cover letter?
Yes.
6:30?
Yeah, 6:30 on the 17th.
Okay. I did have one additional topic
All right.
that the chairman did not reasonably anticipate, or even unreasonably. I waved this flag for the Springtown meeting too, and it has to do with the syntax on the cover page of this book. And I know there's some historical pride of authorship on that, but I'm going to raise it again. So everybody gets this book, and it's labeled the report of the Finance Committee. It's probably so labeled because the charter says the Finance Committee shall produce a report to the voters for each town meeting. However, and I feel fairly strongly about it because more than one person in the town is of the opinion that the Finance Committee wrote what's in this book. In other words, all of the actions that they're asking the voters to take were created by the Finance Committee. It's kind of naive, but there are some people that think that. Notably, Mark Lawrence, at the last town meeting, when he came and asked permission to speak on the styrofoam ban, because the first he ever heard of it was when he got this book in the mail, or someone gave it to it, and he knew I was on the Finance Committee, and he called, he said, well, it's your report, so this must be your article. So I gave him a quick education. Most towns, here's one from Falmouth, more correctly, titles the Town of Falmouth Articles of the Warrant, which is really what it is. for the November town meeting in smaller type with recommendations from the Board of Selectmen, the Finance Committee, the Planning Board, and Community Preservation Committee. Maybe we don't need all those committees, but I would argue that it would be more appropriate to label our book Articles of the Warrant with recommendations from the Finance Committee, because that's really what it is. And I don't think that conflicts with the directive from the charter. I think it's just a change from habit.
You'd have to say, because it requires us to give a report as not just recommendation. So it'd have to be the
We
report.
could say report
the
and
report
recommendations.
With recommendations from the finance committee.
Yeah, that would be fine. But most people, they've never even seen the articles on a warrant until they get this book, unless they saw it in the newspaper, and you know, only 1,300 people subscribe to the newspaper out of 11,000, 12,000 voters, you know. So this is it for most folks, if they're going at all.
So the question is, who do we have to talk to who would like?
Well,
to change it?
I think Terry's the gatekeeper on it, because she prepares all of this to go to the printer and to the newspaper. And if that's the case, or whoever would direct that, I would urge us to communicate that preference. Because the cost of this and the mailing of it is in our budget. We pay for it, so it's literally our document. So we own it, even though other people have a hand in publishing it.
So we'll take this up at our next meeting. We'll have a formal discussion on it.
Could do that.
It might be interesting to get an opinion from, maybe there's a reason it's worded like you said in the charter, and maybe that opinion from town council, if we could change that wording, that would be helpful too.
There's nothing in the charter that, or the bylaws that say what the report has to say on it as far as a header.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't
It
think
just says we need to issue a report on, with explanations.
I just don't want to see the finance committee blamed for everything. And this makes
Put a
it,
picture of our committee on the front cover with capes on, you know. and
That's a
they-
great
Can we
idea.
have the masks?
Capes and masks, I like that.
I won't even begin to advocate that we change it to a different color. Getting tired of blue.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion to adjourn.
Hold on. Before we do that, I've got, but you know that there has been, one other person has submitted interest to be on the finance committee, in addition to the individual who is not selected. So we've got two possible candidates for the vacant position. So that's where things stand at the moment. The other notification just came in like within the last day or so. So, we'll be looking to fill that vacancy as soon as I talk with Ed Larkin. All right?
Now, can I second his
Now you
motion?
can make his motion again.
Motion to adjourn.
Second?
All right, we've got a motion to adjourn. Any disagreement? Nope. Hearing none, this meeting is called. Thank you very much, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you, good
Thank you,
job.
Jeff.
One quick housekeeping thing in the board committee information sheet. Who do I get in touch with to give my mailing address?